Everyone here knows me, but I'm Aaron Brock, the director for Missoula Food Bank. I'm going to go really quickly through our slides because literally every single person sitting here today has seen us do this. So I'm not going to belabor it, but I will do it pretty fast. Our current location, last year, 2015, almost 18,500 separate individuals who got food from our food bank, almost 120,000 total services. And you can see some of the breakdown of who it is that we're serving. So 1 in 3 are kids. You see the percentages on seniors and veterans. What we talk about at the food bank is emergency food assistance. And in most cases, that plays out in the numbers that we see. 65% of all the households that we saw came 3 times or fewer, with almost 40% coming just once. So you can imagine that family on a tight budget, but they're making it and then something happens. There's some event, they walk through our doors, but they do get their feet back under them. And that's the majority of who we serve. There are certainly some higher risk populations. You think about folks, but 20% of the children growing up here in Missoula County are in households at or below the poverty level, so there's a high need there. Think about seniors and then those experiencing crisis. And then there is, of course, a population that relies on us more frequently. I think about folks, if you're a senior and you're on a fixed income and it's not enough to survive, visiting the food bank every month might be a part of how you live here in Missoula. And we have seen an increase in the number of second visits. People are allowed to come to the food bank twice per month. And the number of people doing that jumped almost 25% last year. We're here because we really recognize our role, and that the food bank is not the solution to poverty or hunger issues. We're not going to food bank our way out of these issues. So let's have other conversations about systemic causes and other factors that contribute. So the next food for thought, just for your calendars, will be Thursday the 21st. We're going to experiment with changing the time, so we won't be doing these at noon for the foreseeable future. We're going to move them into the afternoon, see if that is more accessible to more folks. We wish there were more people who were involved in these conversations. And we'll be talking about childhood hunger on that day. And that's it for me. I'm going to turn it over to Julia Kramer, who is going to talk about earned income tax credits with us right now. She's going to give a presentation, and then I'm going to suggest that we sort of circle up for a conversation after she's done. Thanks, Julia.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Kramer, and let me, set this up really fast. Current slide. Okay, so I'm a policy analyst with the Montana Budget and Policy Center, and we're a nonprofit located in Helena. And we do research and analysis on budget and tax issues in the state, but we have a primary focus on low-income families in Montana. And we've been doing a lot of research on the federal earned income tax credit. What are the benefits of the credit? How does it impact families in the state? How does it work? It can be kind of a complicated program. And then how would enacting a state credit, since we don't have one right now, how would that further support families here? So to start, the federal earned income tax credit is just that. It's a tax credit. It's for low and moderate income families and workers. It was created in 1975 by Congress, and it was created for 2 reasons. Primarily to supplement low wages for workers so that they can, when they fall into these hard times and they're struggling to make ends meet, it helps them get back on their feet. But it also aims to reduce the impact that federal income taxes have on low-income families. So you have to be working and you have to have earnings from a job first and foremost to receive the credit. Primarily these are working parents with children that are receiving it, earning up to about $50,000 a year. Childless workers can also receive the credit, but it's a very small amount that they receive, and because of eligibility requirements, not that many childless workers are receiving it. So if you do qualify, your benefits are based on how much you earn during the year, how many children that you claim as your dependent, and your marital status. So as you can see from this graph right here, the credit increases as your earnings increase. There's a maximum level. So for instance, let's see if I'm going to read this correctly. It's kind of a confusing graph, but if you're married and you have 3 or more children, you're at the top benefit here. You could stand to potentially get over $6,000. And then as you're working more, as your earnings are increasing, as you're having more financial security, the credit slowly decreases, and then you move off of the program. A really important feature of the credit is that it's refundable. So this means that first and foremost, it goes towards paying off your federal income tax. And then if the credit exceeds that amount, you receive that in the form of a refund check. So I have an example here. So let's say, so first off, single mothers are one of the most common beneficiaries of the credit. If you're a single mom and you have 2 children, you're working full-time, and in Montana you're earning minimum wage, which is a little over $8 an hour. For this family, you're still living far below the poverty line. So for a family of this size, poverty line is $20,000 a year. This mother is only earning not even $17,000 a year. So because she has 2 children, because she's single, she would qualify for a credit worth $5,548. She's not going to receive all of this. Like I said, it's refundable, so it goes towards paying off her federal income tax bill. Let's say she owes $2,000 in federal income taxes. Obviously, it pays this off, and she receives the difference of $3,548. So this technically is lifting her out of poverty. Obviously, you can see it has a very significant impact on her income, but on the day-to-day for this mom, she's now able to get caught up on her bills, pay for the gas that she needs to get to and from work. She can buy her children clothes and school supplies. So the refund is really a temporary safety net. The vast majority of people who are receiving this are only receiving it for 1 or 2 years. They're getting back on their feet, and they're moving out of the program. Most people receive their checks in February and March, so these last 2 months are pretty common. In 2013, the average refund for a family with children was about $3,000. And there's been a lot of research out there about how people actually use it. So most people are taking half of the refund. They're using it to, again, pay for the basic needs. So they're buying groceries, school supplies for their kids. They're putting it towards daycare so their kids have a safe place to be while they're at work. A lot of people are catching up on bills. Also, really interesting, a lot of people use this to make car repairs, and it's because they want, obviously, a reliable form of transportation to get to and from work, which just suggests that the credit, again, is encouraging people to work more and build their financial security. So, in the context of why we're here today, I mean, Missoula Food Bank is obviously hosting this series, and so I wanted to do some research in terms of what's the link between the EITC and food security. Really interesting research out there right now that says that people who receive the Earned Income Tax Credit in February, there's a spike in paying for not only groceries, but actually healthier food. So people are paying more for fruits and vegetables and proteins and things like that. But also, they are spending less going out and eating at restaurants or at fast food chains. They are buying healthier foods, and they are preparing these meals at home with their children. And Liz pointed out to me, actually, that Between January and February, there's a dip in clients that are moving through the Missoula Food Bank. And in the past 4 years, on average, the number of clients moving through the food bank has dipped about 25%, which is pretty significant. Obviously, I haven't been researching why this is, and I would venture to guess you guys understand more about the factors that are happening at this time of year, why people are coming through less. But it does coincide with when people are receiving this major tax credit, and I think there's likely a link there. But it would be really interesting to study this. So I want to talk a little bit about what are the benefits. So I said earlier, Congress created this. One of the ways was to promote work for individuals who are working and supplement their low wages. And we do know that this encourages people to work more. And actually, it boosts employment, but specifically for single mothers. So research looking at, in the 1990s, what were the biggest factors that increased employment among this group? And by far, it was the earned income tax credit. Even when you set this against welfare reform, which happened in the mid-90s, and even if you're comparing it against labor market factors like low unemployment or rising wages, it was the earned income tax credit that was putting over 500,000 women into work and increasing their work. And it's because in the late 80s and in the early 90s, they increased the credit for single mothers, and they increased eligibility, but also the benefit that you could receive. So because it's increasing work, because it's supplementing low wages, it obviously has a huge impact on poverty. It's actually, aside from Social Security, it is the #1 program to lift people out of poverty in the country. In Montana, there are over 100,000 people that are working but still living in poverty. The economy is recovering, but it's very slow, and the number of people that are going to be working in jobs that are paying low wages is only going to increase. So a program like this helps people get on their feet when they've fallen into hard times. So in 2013, this is the most recent data we have for the earned income tax credit. But in that year, it was responsible for lifting 6 million people out of poverty, including 3 million children. And it reduced poverty for almost another 22 million people in the country. And then this is an interesting graph. So this is the earned income tax credit set against other safety net programs. So you can see EITC and programs like SNAP are having a huge impact on the lives of people that live in poverty. And it brings me to kind of this second point, that why EITC is so impactful is because it's pretty easy to receive. You go and you fill out your taxes, which everybody's doing right now. If you qualify, you check a box, and literally 3 weeks later, you receive your refund check. And so it's really easy to qualify. If you compare this against programs like TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, which is another cash-based support program, eligibility is really onerous. So like you have to go obviously down to your local public assistance office. If you're working, that means you're taking time out of work. Potentially that could not be good. You could be fired just doing that. You have to fill out a lot of forms. It's just really a difficult process. So a lot of people aren't qualifying for TANF even though they really need it. But that's why you see such high numbers around EITC as well, because it's pretty easy to receive. And then the last major benefit, children are by far the greatest beneficiaries of this program. Without the federal earned income tax credit, childhood poverty would actually be 25% higher than it is today. And we know that when children move out of poverty earlier in life, they do better as adults. So research has shown that when parents receive the earned income tax credit, children do better in school. They have higher math scores, they have higher reading scores, they're able to keep up with their peers through K through 12 years. They're more likely to graduate from high school. They're more likely to attend college because their parents have more income to pay for tuition, but also they've been keeping up with their peers, through school years. And they work more and they have higher earnings later in life. So for each $3,000 a year in added income that a child receives before the age of 6, or that their parents receive, they work 135 more hours as an adult each year, and they have a rise in earnings of 17%. So obviously it's eliminating the cycle of poverty, because these children are obviously lifted out of poverty early in life. They grow up, they earn more, they have children, they can provide for their children more. So we know that the federal earned income tax credit is working here in Montana. In 2013, 80,000 families received it, and disproportionately families in rural areas receive the credit more than families in more populated areas. And this is important because it's keeping dollars locally in these rural areas that are struggling economically. Families receive this money, they go to their local store and they're buying groceries, or they're buying household supplies, whatever basic needs. So it's keeping money locally and stimulating those local economies. 12,000 veteran and military families received the credit in 2013. This is important because you have people coming back to Montana, and they are trying to work and provide for themselves and get back to the routine and support their families, but many of them are working in low-wage positions, and so they're struggling to make ends meet. The earned income tax credit helps them while they work to get back on their feet. And we know that the same anti-poverty benefits are happening here. Between 2011 and 2013, the credit helped lift 24,000 Montanans, including 13,000 children, out of poverty each year between that period. So this brings me to my kind of last part of the presentation, which is these same families that receive the federal credit would benefit if we were to create a state credit. So 26 states and DC have created state credits, and they typically do this by creating a state credit that's at a fixed percent of the federal credit. So in these states, mostly you have state credits between 5 or 10% of whatever the federal credit is. And again, it's having the same impact. It's supporting working families in those states. It's reducing poverty. It's strengthening local communities. In Montana, often those communities are rural. But a major benefit is the fact that it mitigates state income taxes that low-income families pay. And this is really huge in Montana, because Montana is one of only 5 states in the country that imposes income taxes on people who are living in severe poverty. So if you are a single parent and you have 2 children and you're earning $9,000 a year, you're considered living in extreme poverty, but the state still taxes you. So having a state earned income tax credit helps to mitigate that, the impact that has. And just as an example, if we were to create a state credit set at 10% of the federal EITC, if you combined these, it would effectively raise the hourly wage of a single mom with 2 children by $2.93. This is a woman who's working full-time and earning minimum wage. So effectively, she's going from $8 an hour to almost $11 an hour. So pretty huge impact. So that's all I have. I kind of blew through that, and if you have any questions, we can talk through them. But I brought some reports. They're on the back table if anyone's interested in reading more. This Center for Budget and Policy Priorities, these are our national organization. They help us a lot in doing this research. They have really great information if you want to learn more. And then also, if you or someone you know likely qualifies for the Earned Income Tax Credit, you can go to montanafreefile.org. You can find out if there's a free tax preparer near you, and literally you don't pay a dime. You go, you bring all your paperwork, these people help you fill out your taxes for free. They'll help you claim the credit. So it's a really, really good resource that is all throughout Montana. So that's all I have. Yeah.
Do you have an estimation on how much it would cost to implement a state PTC?
Yeah, so if we set it at 10% of a federal credit, it would be about $8 million. So that is, it sounds like a lot. The states that have done this, they usually are paying for it out of their general fund. However, a lot of states are also helping to pay for a credit by closing tax breaks for wealthy individuals and corporations. So in Montana, which is, I do research on this as well, there are oil companies, obviously, in eastern Montana that are drilling. If you're a new oil company and you set up shop, you don't pay any taxes on the first 18 months of drilling, which ironically is the period which you pull out the most oil. So because we're not taxing those companies, we literally are losing hundreds of millions of dollars that would pay for schools and roads. It would pay for this years in advance. So when we think about paying this, I mean, we're really trying to think about how to close those tax breaks for corporations, and yeah.
Do you know, Julia, if there would be anything precluding the state of Montana from using the TANF block grant money that is at the state level in that big pool to fund something like this? Do you know, could we use TANF money to fund this?
I am pretty sure that you can, but I'm not positive about that. But I think my knee-jerk reaction to that is that I would want to keep TANF dollars for TANF, because that program is really underutilized in Montana. There are so many families in the state that are not receiving TANF that really need it. And I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we really need to improve TANF in general, that program. So I wouldn't really want to take resources away from it. But I don't think, I think you can use that money. Yeah. And it's tied in with the MOE, and I can't think of what that stands for right now. Can you? I can't. But anyway, yeah. So.
Has any legislation been proposed in the state?
Yeah. So we actually just proposed. So we work on educating people about what a state credit would do, and we're up at the Capitol watching this all happen. We proposed, or a legislator proposed, last year a state earned income tax credit, and actually did pretty well. I think the last time that a credit was proposed was in '09. But this year, it was something like 8 out of 12 Republicans on the tax committee were for this. It passed out of that committee, and then it went to the House floor, and it was killed on the floor. But I mean, pretty significant that there were those Republicans that were for this. And actually, this is becoming more of a bipartisan issue because people are seeing how much it affects families. And in 2017, this will be an issue again. Yeah.
Are you working with a specific legislature to carry a bill?
Not at this point. I mean, we're pretty early on. We do have really close relationships with a lot of legislators and know where they would fall on this issue, and we do have a few in mind that we think would probably support this, and moderate Republicans and Democrats alike. So, yeah. Do you,
So the
yeah.
bank has an action line that we can call to be supportive voices, but are we connected on that to your organization? Could we be, or should we be?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to have some conversations about how we can work together with this. Yeah, definitely. And I think I really want to learn how people who are using the food bank, obviously how this interacts, right? So like people that receive the earned income tax credit and also using the food bank. I want to hear those stories. Right now, we don't have a lot of stories in Montana, and I'm working with a lot of free tax filers throughout the state to get data, but also to get personal stories. But yeah, I would really like to work with the food bank and do that. So we're very open to it.
One last question, and that is, how healthy is the Montana state budget to have these kinds of 8 million here and like there?
Yeah, I would argue it's pretty healthy. I mean, we have, I'm not exactly sure what the ending fund balance is right now, but it's something like $300 million, which is a pretty, I mean, we're not in a deficit. I mean, that's a good pool. And again, I mean, ideally, we don't want to just be pulling this out of the general fund. We want to be closing these tax breaks for these corporations and using some of that to pay this off. It would really help. So, yeah.
But even I mean, 8 million here, 8 million there, you're talking about, that's real money after a while.
Yeah.
But in the scheme of a state budget, it is almost negligible. There are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of more expensive line items.
Right.
I'm surprised it's that low.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that is very low. I mean, $8 million, and I mean, you're lifting 24,000 individuals out of poverty every year it's amazing. Yeah, and if you can set it up in a neutral way, by again closing tax breaks, that would be ideal.
And one more thought is that what if someone were to lobby these companies that have hundreds of millions of dollars in gains these first 18 months and see if any of them would want to help support these programs?
That would be amazing. And I mean, you have these oil companies who are working in eastern Montana, and those communities, many of them are receiving the earned income tax credit, and you can make the argument that, hey, you're coming in and you're creating jobs for a little while, but you're also having a huge economic impact once you dry up and you leave here. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely an argument to be made there. Yeah.
We're here to talk about EITC, but it sounds like you have a lot of firsthand experience with the TANF program as well, and said that there are a lot of things that we could do to improve that. Would you, I mean, we've got time, would you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I don't know that much about TANF. So my area is really EITC, and my colleague and the co-director of our organization really has dived into TANF. She's the expert. She sits on an advising committee in terms of how to improve TANF in the state. So I think if you have questions that are in the weeds, I probably can't answer them, or I just don't want to give you like false information. But we have a lot of information on our site, and I would direct you to go there. Yeah, but in terms of, I mean, I would love to put you in contact with her if you'd like to learn more also. Yeah.
My understanding is that the TANF pool of funds, that the money at the state level that doesn't get directly to families, that's part of the way that we paid for Medicaid expansion. And so that's where my brain was going with, could we use that to pay for
Okay, yeah. Yeah. And I'm not sure about that.
Sure, yeah.
Do you have another budget item you could compare the $8 million lump to say we spend $8 million on this?
Oh, yeah. No, I really don't off the top of my head. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a program. I mean, I'm trying to even think of how much we spend on TANF, and I just can't think of it right now. I know this is much lower than most of the line items that you look at when you're looking at the budget, but yeah, I don't have a number, sorry. Okay, well, thank you. We can talk more too if you'd like, but if if anyone has any more questions, I don't know.